Hi and welcome back to another video, fellow book haters. Or hello and welcome to your first video if this is your first video. My name is Lena and I actually do love books. But today we're gonna talk about the absolute worst books that I read in the year of 2022. Just as a disclaimer, sometimes you just read a book and you just hate it. And I always think it's fun to talk about these books and to rant about these books because that's fair. Why not? You have your own opinions about books, and if they're negative, they're negative. Now, what I would like to emphasize here is that a book can be bad and you can make fun of a book. You can hate a book to shreds. But the way that I view it is it's always about the books. I'm never talking about the author. I want to make this perfectly clear here. It's simply a matter of subjective opinion and taste and what you like in books and what you dislike in books. And some of the books hit my dislike button really hard. I want to state though that I've had an outstandingly good reading year this year, and that the first book that's actually worthy of getting into this list I have read in August, 8 months into the year. How crazy is that? So the books on this list are books that I've rated 1 out of 10 stars, 2 out of 10 stars, and 3 out of 10 stars, which all translate to a 1-star review on Goodreads. If you go half-star steps, it's 0.5 to 1 to 1.5 stars on a 5-star scale. Just so you know, this is how my rating system works. Now I'd like to start with the first book that I read that kind of just wasn't for me. And that was in August when I decided to pick up another Roofware. I was picking up The It Girl in hopes to get a similar feeling as with The Turn of the Key, in which I really like the unsettling vibes of it. I really love spooks and unnatural and supernatural things, and I certainly was interested in the story since it's said to be about a murderer who got wrongly convicted as new information surfaces 10 years after his conviction, and then we're following Hannah, who helped imprisoning that man. My overall main struggle with this book was definitely the false expectations that I had. I thought this to be a thriller when it turned out to be a mystery. So it's divided into 2 time zones, the one before the murder and the one after. The one before just focuses on April, who is the victim, and Hannah and their life and friendship and relationships with other students at university. And the other time point tells the story of 10 years later when Hannah finds out that maybe whoever she thought was the murderer was actually not. In my books, I prefer a lot of thrills. I prefer a lot of things that keep me attached to the pages, things that don't make me stop reading, and I did not really get a lot of them in here. What I got was idle banter. The whole story arc set in university was just something I was not interested in, and which I didn't understand why I should be interested in, because one of the girls gonna end up dead. What else is there to tell us? It doesn't matter if she has daddy issues. It doesn't matter if you were once friends or how she played the others. I mean, that could matter actually. But why do I have to see it in such an unnecessarily elongated form? It didn't make sense to me to drag the story out as much as it was. And really nothing against character studies, but the characters just struck me as so shallow. The conversations they had were so unimportant. I just couldn't see why I needed to read about those. And the sad thing about this to me is that there was potential. Hannah could have thought about her actions, could have thought about the results of her testimony, what that meant for another human's life, to be imprisoned wrongfully. But instead we have Hannah's thoughts being repeated way past the informative value. To me, it was just a lack of substance here. Now we're moving on to the next one, which is the one and only graphic novel on my list, and it's called I'm Every Woman by Liv Strömquist. And this also does not only deserve the title of the worst graphic novel I've read this year, but also the book with the most hideous cover. This comic is a feministic comic. It's made up of tiny short segments within the comic. Some pages are just one entire punchline on a page, and it's very provocative in its instructions and the way it talks about feminism and it talks about men. I just didn't like Strömquist's way of presenting the issues. I felt like instead of lifting women up, she was putting men down, and that is where I take my issue with. Feminism can be loud, it can be provocative, it can be vulgar, but the way that Liv Strömquist did it, I think she missed the mark. Next I read Illuminati by J. Christoph and Amy Kaufman, and this is probably the simplest explanation for not liking a book that I can give you. Is it was just not my genre, and also I was not the target age group of this. This is meant for teenagers, as our main characters Ezra and Katie are both, I think, 17 and 18 years old. Like, they are a former couple, they are fleeing from the home planet as this got invaded, and now we're just following them trying to escape. This overall was just full of tacky conversations and superficial storytelling, and I would say like that this may be due to my age. That I felt like that about this book, but I know that there are some really well written books directed at a younger audience that grown-ups can enjoy as well. This was not one of them, I think. It's just because you're young doesn't mean you're dumb, you know? The characters were also so stereotypical while pretending they were not, but this is still just a fun read. You know, you shouldn't look too deeply into the story. I think it's not constructed to be like a really deep one. It's a quick read. It has some fun to it due to the mixed media that it provides. And you know what? I did get some hours of vicarious embarrassment through this, so worth it? I think for me it was. Then, next book on the list is gonna be The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This is about the final girls living in this world as if they were real, and then a killer trying to kill them off, the final girls. Sounds exciting on paper, intriguing concept, I know, it's boring as fuck. And that is because Hendrix does only know how to write one story. He does not alterate, he has one formula, he sticks with it, read one book, you know them all. In my opinion, it's a great savior if I say in my opinion, but I mean, I'm really negative, I understand that. This is the purpose of the video, please don't come for me. And I also said I wouldn't attack the author. Let's give him that I read a book by him this year that I thought to be a 10 out of 10, okay? So this guy has it in himself, probably. This book, however, was one of the most boring reads I've had this year, if not in the past 5 years. It was horrible, horrible. No creativity, no innovation, no feeling for the reader and how to drag a story along. The story was so arbitrary and the plot was so carelessly done. Am I mean yet? I guess so. The thing is, I finally decided that Grady Hendrix is not for me. He's just simply not my type of author. Demon Story was an exception. Don't know how he did that. But I tell you, I must hate myself. Because there's a book that's going to be released in January by him called How to Sell a Haunted House. And boy am I intrigued by the title. I love haunted house, I love ghost stories, I love creepiness, I love chills. I don't think that I'll get that in that book. But why do I want to pick it up so badly? Why? Because this man knows how to sell a book. That's why. And that's maybe why I'm attacking him a bit personally. Stop fucking clickbaiting me, Grady Hendrix. Stop. I beg you to do mundane titles so I don't pick up your books. Anyway, we're gonna see how much I hate myself next year. Let's talk about the next book on my list, and that is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sagan. This book is about Casey Fletcher, a former actress who's now widowed and also lives at her house at a lake, and an alcoholic, and spies on her neighbors, which is probably a premise we've seen 1,100 times. But still, I picked it up because it was so loved and people are gonna hate me. I think The House Across the Lake is one nice example for the lengths that modern thrillers will go in order to catch the readers off guard. This twist was a fucking curveball. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to talk too much on it, I don't want to reveal the twist, but I have read another book this year that had the same kind of twist, and it worked. Why? Because it was woven into the story cleverly. The thing I want to add though is that it wasn't only the twist, okay? A twist can only ruin so much, but the characters in the book themselves, they were laughably stupid. It's one of those books that was so bad that they felt almost good again, because I was just laughing the whole way through it. So if you're looking for a really good hate read or really good ridiculous character read, like where actions just don't make sense, where the main character forgets information that she's already had find out, and then stumbles over it again and feels like it's a revelation, and then she has to like sort of think about it for 5 minutes again, when you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I kind of already heard that. Why are you going on about this again? But again, I am laughing. So did I have a good time reading this? I'd say so. Was it a good book? By no means. By no means. No. And the final worst book, I'm gonna be beheaded for talking about this as a worst book of this year, but I'm gonna say it. My final worst book of this year was Mexican Gothic. Didn't like this book. This book is about a girl whose cousin lives at a mansion with her husband and his family, and she gets sick and she writes a cousin a letter, and the cousin comes. I forgot the name of the cousin, so we're just gonna call her main girl and cousin. Main girl, cousin. I'm not gonna talk about the cousin, I'm just gonna talk about the main girl here. The main girl was Noemi. Her name was Noemi. I couldn't stand her. I could not. Not a single second of reading this, I was convinced that she was a strong woman. She was a brat. I'm sorry. Just imagine this. You are a host. You're inviting somebody into your house. You ask them to please not smoke inside, which this is set in an earlier time point, so I guess it's like more normal to smoke inside. Still, you're asking them kindly to not smoke inside your house, your room, and they just do it. I would be furious. I would kick him out of my house. I don't care if we're related. I don't care if I have responsibility. You're not gonna sleep in my rooms if I can't trust you or not investing them. And yet the reader is supposed to side with this very disrespectful character. How? Besides that, the story itself was also not really innovative. The characters did not have a lot of depth to them, except for Noemi, of course. She's a little bit more fleshed out, but in a way that I couldn't connect with her. And then we have Vigil, who's just bad, purely bad. And he has nothing more to offer than that. And then we have Francis, who's like the love interest of the story, but I kind of also don't understand why Noemi likes him, because he's like part of this very strange family. So I would think that somebody who grew up in this environment must have like a screw loose themselves, you know, wouldn't they? And then there's also this thing, that's like my pet peeve, but if a character in a story is like unspeakably beautiful and all the characters in the story just want to own her, or they kind of fall in love with her, fall to her feet and stuff, that annoys me. I can't help it, I just think it's annoying. I don't like this sort of, I'm the most prettiest woman in the world. I believe myself to not be, but I am, because every man I meet craves me. This is the sort of character I'm not really into. To be fair, Noemi is a bit full of herself, so I don't think that she believes she's not pretty, but still not my cup of tea. I can see how this story, however, appeals to some people. It's a very comfortable horror. I would even say it's barely a horror. You get what you expect, sort of thing, you know, if you like this vibe of the early 19th century and you just have this depiction of luxury and beauty. I guess this is a safe bet to me. It was just not for me. And here we are at the end of this video. I would be surprised if I have any subscribers left at this point. Anyways, if you're still here and watching, I would love to know what your worst book of the year was. Maybe it was one that I loved, so I can feel the pain. For now, I guess I'll have nothing else to say, and then I'll see you at another time in another video. Bye!